show is the 21st Century. I'm with you every Friday from 5 o'clock to 6. Viewers are delighted to see this show, or they're infuriated, but they're never bored. This show is about life. And today we're going to have an unusual situation. Waiting for the call to come in. This man is David Bloom. He has a theory and an idea about alcohol that will replace fuel and gasoline so that we don't have to depend on the Arabs all the time. Can you give us the big picture here of the oil companies and what they are doing to curtail alcohol fuel competition today?
Well, you need to understand that the oil companies have been trying to curtail competition from alcohol for almost 100 years. So, you know, what's going on today is nothing more than a continuation of what the oil companies have always done. I mean, if you go all the way back to the early 1900s, you'll find that Rockefeller funded the Women's Christian Temperance Movement to buy Congress and enact prohibition to get rid of alcohol as a fuel. Prohibition stopped the manufacture of alcohol, not just drinking. So when you go back far enough, you'll find that alcohol and gasoline have been in competition for a long time. The oil companies don't play fair. So the big picture of what's happening today is that we've been subjected to kind of merciless propaganda over the last year concerning the whole argument of food versus fuel. And the oil companies have portrayed going to alcohol fuel as an immoral choice that would raise the price of food and cause poor people around the world to starve. In reality, there was never any factual basis for this claim, and in fact, the opposite is true. You know, in this last year, during this whole time of propaganda, the United States had the biggest corn crop it had ever had in 33 years, and we had a surplus of corn of over 1.6 billion bushels. So, in other words, after the alcohol producers bought their corn and the food producers bought their corn, the silos are still full of corn. In other words, there's no shortage. With no shortage, the price can't go up and nobody can be short of food. Yet that's not reported in the press, and ethanol continues to be blamed for a fictional shortage and increase in the price of food. The final, bit of evidence about this, in the last month and a half or so, the price of corn has actually gone back down to the pre-propaganda levels. And of course, same amount of alcohol has always been produced. So clearly, alcohol has no effect on the price of corn or the availability of food. And yet, that argument has been used to do almost everything to try to curtail the movement of the United States into alcohol as a renewable fuel.
Can you give us a rundown on what alcohol is and how it's made as a fuel for cars?
Well, alcohol is really liquid solar energy. When plants do photosynthesis, they use sunlight to glue together carbon dioxide from the air and water and make carbohydrates. Carbo for carbohydrates, for carbon dioxide, and hydrate for water. So when we take starches and sugars and we ferment them and make them into alcohol using yeast eats the sugars and produce the alcohol, we then distill the alcohol out of the mash, and then we can use it as a fuel. When we burn it and it explodes in our engine, that's the solar energy exploding and driving the car down the road. Then the carbon dioxide and water become unglued, go back out the exhaust pipe, and are used by next year's crop to make next year's alcohol. So when we talk about making alcohol fuel, we're really talking about running our cars on solar energy.
I want to ask you something. Here in New York City, we are very concerned with heating oil. I myself am a victim of it because they keep raising my rent. They say 10%, 20% because of the cost of oil. Can alcohol replace that? And what do you think prices will be this winter? I'm worried about the winter prices of oil.
Well, that's a very interesting thing. Alcohol is useful for a lot of things. And back in the 1980s, we did a lot of conversions at Mother Earth News of fuel oil burners to run on alcohol. It takes about $25 in parts and about an hour's worth of time to get into the fuel oil burner and convert it to alcohol. So we typically burn a mixture of straight alcohol with 1% biodiesel added. And that 1% biodiesel, which is a lot like fuel oil, is used to lubricate the fuel oil pump. But in essence, we can use alcohol with almost very few changes in the current fuel oil burner, and alcohol is a lot less expensive than fuel oil. Now, what will be the price of fuel oil winter? Well, if I was looking at my crystal ball, I would say that probably by sometime in January this year,
Yes.
there will be one of a number of incidents that will cause the price of oil to jump, because the price of oil right now is artificially low as a pre-election strategy. And this pattern has gone on for about the last 10 elections, where they drop the price of oil before the election in order to make deals with whatever parties are willing to make deals with. And then after the election, usually no later than March 1st, the price of oil is back up to where it was the previous summer. So we can expect a refinery explosion or a sudden cold snap or something to be blamed on a sudden increase in the price of oil sometime probably this January. We should expect gasoline prices to top $5 a gallon this year because basically we're looking at a shortfall of 2 million barrels a day right now worldwide.
God, that's dreadful. Let me ask you another question here. Wait a minute. You talked about crashing prices of corn earlier. What does that mean for farmers, consumers in the rural community? We're in another community. We're in New York City. What can we do? I talk to people here, and they're in New York City, and a lot of people argue, complain, and holler, but they don't do anything about it. What can we do here to replace oil? To have more alcohol instead of oil? Now,
Well,
I remember you saying, I'm sorry, that when Ford started, he put alcohol in his car. Is that true? Henry Ford.
Basically, we can replace up to 50% of the current gasoline we use by putting alcohol in our cars, and that's without modifying the cars one little bit. In other words, if you went ahead and filled up your car halfway on gasoline and then topped it off, filling the other half with alcohol, your car would run just fine, because modern cars have pretty flexible computers that adjust for different air-fuel mixtures. Just like there's winter and summer gasoline that your computer has to adjust for, when you add alcohol to the gas, the computer can adjust at least up to 50%. So city people can really help Americans who are growing and producing alcohol by simply putting it in the tank. And this is a revolutionary act, because what you're saying is, I'm not going to give my money to big oil anymore. I'm going to give half my money right now to American farmers. And this is something people can do today, and all it does is benefit them. In other words, alcohol is a much cleaner fuel. It cleans all the carbon out of your engine and extends engine life. It's cheaper than gasoline. So for once, doing the green thing doesn't cost you more money. In fact, alcohol should become, by this summer, much cheaper than gasoline, even though it's just a little cheaper now. Last summer, gasoline in Chicago, when I was visiting there, was $4.35 a gallon, and alcohol was only $2.75. So as we get back into the real prices of oil, we're going to see that alcohol is really a bargain, and there's nothing to stop people from using it right now. But you can go a lot further. You know, in my book, Alcohol Can Be a Gas, I explain how you can use off-the-shelf parts to convert your vehicle to run on 100% alcohol for just a couple of $100. Or there are convenient conversion kits available that are easier to install than some of these off-the-shelf part ideas, and they allow your car to run on both alcohol or gasoline, whatever mixture you have in the tank, just fine. And those only cost $300 or $400 for those kits. In Brazil, over 100,000 of these kits have been installed, because Brazil has alcohol at the pump almost everywhere, and they work just fine. So you can start off by running your car on unmodified and run 50% alcohol, but once you've got a taste of the good stuff and you're tired of buying gasoline, it's only a few $100s to go ahead and switch over to 100% alcohol, which is cheaper than gas.